Hello, and welcome back to another episode of 8-Bit Monsters Monster Deconstruction for D&D 5th Edition. On today's episode, we're going to take a look at the Displacer Beast, a most iconic monster found in the Monsters Manual on page 81. But we're also going to take a look at the reduced threat version found from Tales from the Yawning Portal on page 113. Now, the Displacer Beast from the Monsters Manual will rate us at a CR 3, which is worth 700 XP. Meanwhile, the Displacer Beast from the Yawning Portal version, or the Reduced Threat as we'll call it, is a CR3 as well, worth 350 XP. Now, let's dive into encounter building. As a group monster, the Displacer Beast can be used with 6 players at 3rd level, 4 players at 4th level, and 2 players at 5th and 6th level. Now, to use this as a solo encounter monster, with 1 monster to 1 player, we can use this for players at 7th to 10th level. We can also use this as a swarm monster from anything of 11th level and above, ranging with 2 Displacer Beasts at 11th to 13th level, 3 Beasts at 14th to 16th level, 4 Displacer Beasts at 17th level, 5 Displacer Beasts at 18th to 19th level, and a whopping 6 Displacer Beasts per 1 player at 20th level. As I had mentioned in a previous episode about Swarm Beasts, the action economy can get pretty gnarly here, and you may not want to use that many monsters unless you're looking to kill your players. Not exactly, troll. Actually, this is a game about telling a story and not about the DM versus the players. I wonder where he's getting that idea from. Anyways. And finally, we can look at this monster as an epic encounter. And it suggested that we could put 5 players at 2nd level up against one of these Displacer Beasts, or we could put 4 players at 3rd level. And now, let's move on to the TLDW. For our TLDW, I found the Displacer Beast from the Monsters Manual to be a DCR 1, the Reduced Threat version to be a DCR 1/4, the Standard version an OCR 4, while the Reduced Threat was an OCR of 3, and for our Displacer Beast FCR I found a 3, while the Reduced Threat version is a 2. Now, this is great for our Monster Manual version of the Displacer Beast, as the printed version is a 3, and I was able to find a 3. Meanwhile, with the changes to the Reduced Threat version, the Displacer Beast from the Yawning Portal is actually considered a CR2. Now that we have the TLDW taken care of, and if you're interested to see why the Reduced Threat version is so much weaker, let's move on into the skills and traits. For our skills and traits, the Displacer Beast will have a proficiency bonus of +2 because of its CR value. On top of that, our Displacer Beast in both forms has nothing else here for skills to worry about, so we'll just jump right into the traits section and take a look at its first one of Avoidance. Now, I believe this may be the first time we've actually seen Avoidance here, and this will give the Displacer Beast an effective +1 AC bonus. Well, troll, I didn't give it this ability, but as we'll see in the next trait, it makes thematic sense. So why don't we look at the next trait? And the next trait that our Displacer Beast has is simply called Displacement. Now, the DMG actually has no guidance for displacement, but as we'll see, because this doesn't actually affect the combat effectiveness of our Displacer Beast, I'm going to suggest that displacement actually gives no effect to the monster. So we'll simply skip over displacement as a trait and not worry about adding it into our totals here. Whoa, buddy, you're getting ahead of yourself. The numbers work out and we don't actually need to add anything. Just hold on and you'll see in a little bit. Alright. Now that our skills and traits are quickly wrapped up, let's move into the DCR for both the normal and the reduced threat version. Look, I've got to take this time and show why these monsters are acting the way they are. Otherwise, there's no structure to the game and no fun as well. So, our Displacer Beast has an actual hit point rating of 85, which comes from 10d10 hit dice plus 30 from its Constitution bonus. This amount of hit points will push the Displacer Beast into a DCR of 1. Now, because nothing else is affecting the hit points, this will make it the effective hit points as well of an 85 at DCR 1. Now for the reduced threat version, the effective hit points are going to drop down to 42, which is actually cutting the Displacer Beast's hit points in half. Now the 42 reduced threat Displacer Beast will actually reduce the DCR from a DCR 1 down to 1/4. Now I wanted to see what the rolls would actually look like to get a 42 for this monster's hit points. And I found that when we subtracted the 30 hit points from its Constitution bonus, we were left with 12 hit points. If we were to take a look at what that might look at, this is going to be an average roll of 1.2, or effectively 8 1s and 2 2s. That's a lot of 1s for this monster's hit points, sadly. Okay, let's take a look at the AC for our Displacer Beast, which is an actual AC rating of 13. But because of the avoidance trait that it has, this is going to shift our actual AC to an effective AC of 14. Now when we look at our charts for a DCR 1 AC rating, this is expected to have an AC of 13. Its effective AC is 14, which gives it +1 over the expected rating, but ends up with no shift to the actual DCR rating. So for our normal Displacer Beast, the DCR is going to be a 1. But what about the reduced threat version? Well, the same thing happens here. The expected AC for our reduced threat Displacer Beast is still a 13, and this is +1 over because of the effective AC, resulting in no shift at all. So the reduced threat Displacer Beast is going to stay at a DCR of 1/4. And now that we have our DCRs taken care of, let's move into the OCR. In the OCR, our Displacer Beast has a multi-attack of 2 tentacle attacks. Now the tentacles have 2 different types of damage. 7.5 points of bludgeoning damage coming from 1d6 plus 4, on top of 3.5 piercing damage coming from 1d6. And when we add these 2 types of damage together, we'll get a total of 11 damage for 1 tentacle attack. And when we total the 2 multi-attacks that it gets for tentacles, this will give the Displacer Beast a total of 22 average damage, resulting in an OCR of 3. Now, let's take a look at the actual attack bonus of our Displacer Beast. Our normal Displacer Beast has an actual attack bonus of +6. Meanwhile, the reduced threat Displacer Beast has an actual attack bonus of +4. So each of these monsters is going to be using their respective attack bonuses because we have nothing affecting the attack bonus. So our normal is going to be using the +6, and our reduced threat version is going to be using the +4. In essence, we could be suggesting that the reduced threat Displacer Beast is using Dex instead of Strength because the Displacer Beast stats show a +4 for Strength, meanwhile a +2 for Dex plus the proficiency bonus. Now looking at our chart, we'll see that an OCR of 3 is expected to have an attack bonus of +4. So for our normal Displacer Beast, this is going to be +2 over the expected, which results in a +1 shift of an OCR 3 to 4. But for our reduced threat, the expected attack bonus is still a +4, but because of the attack bonus being a +4, this is +0 over the expected, and there's going to be no shift, keeping the reduced threat at a 3. Great, we have our DCR and our OCR set. Let's move into the FCR. Now for our normal Displacer Beast, the DCR is going to be a 1, plus an OCR of 4, which equals a 5, and when we average that out, we'll have 2.5, and we'll round that up to a CR3, which is perfect. Here's the printed value of the Displacer Beast. Meanwhile, the reduced threat has a DCR of 1/4 plus an OCR of 3, which results in a 3.25. And when we average that out, we'll end up with a 1.625, and we'll round that up to a CR2. This is where we end up with a slightly lower CR value for our reduced threat Displacer Beast. Okay, we have our FCR all set. Let's transition into the notes section. Number 1. Displacement. This gives no actual combat advantage to the Displacer Beast and therefore doesn't modify the CR value at all. And this is why, even though it's giving disadvantage to the players, it's not improving the combat effectiveness of the Displacer Beast. And why I suggested this gives no effect to the monster whatsoever. And by going over the DCR and the OCR section without adding in displacement, we see that the printed value was found regardless of the effects to the players from displacement. Note number 2, the reduced threat version. The literal halved hit points and swapping the strength and dex of the Displacer Beast actually results in a CR2, which is actually worth 450 XP normally. Now, the reduced threat Displacer Beast from the Yawning Portal, even though it's suggested to be a CR3, is only awarding 350 XP for this monster, literally cutting the total XP in half. Meanwhile, even though the hit points are cut in half, you're still getting the same AC on the monster, and even though the attack bonus for the reduced threat is dropped, you're still getting the same amount of damage. So the monster's still hitting just as hard, but maybe less frequently, and awarding 100 XP less because it's a reduced threat monster isn't necessarily worth it, although it is easy enough to just grab the stats and use it from the Yawning Portal book. And point number 3, my favorite spot of hit point, hit dice, absolute maximum. Here I would suggest adding in one more hit die to bump the Displacer Beast up to 94 hit points coming from 11d10 plus 33 maximum hit points. Now this will shift it up from a DCR 1 to 2, but if we do the math, we'll see that that would be a DCR 2 plus an OCR 4, which equals 6, and when we average that out, we'll have an even CR 3 Displacer Beast. And those are all the notes I have, so let's move into the CR review. So, is the Displacer Beast balanced? Yeah, but the reduced threat version isn't. So we're just going to take a look at the normal Displacer Beast here, and we'll see that a DCR of 1 is 2 steps under its CR value of 3. Its hit point rating of DCR 1 is also 2 steps under the CR 3. Meanwhile, its AC of 13 is equal to the expected rating of 13. Now, the OCR for our Displacer Beast is a 4, which is 1 step over the CR3. The DPR is also an OCR of 3, which is equal to the CR3, but the attack bonus of 6 is 2 steps above the expected rating of 4. So this is why we see this monster probably being able to hit a little more often, doing a bunch of damage expected for its CR range, but not surviving many attacks because its hit points are under the expected rating, but its AC is at the expected range. So we have a balance of a lower DCR, meanwhile having a slightly higher OCR, once again as usual. Thank you for joining us this week as we deconstructed the Displacer Beast from D&D 5th edition. Join us again next week as we deconstruct another monster from D&D 5th edition and break it down into its barest parts to see what is going on with these monsters. If you've been enjoying these videos, I would really appreciate it if you would share these videos with your friends, your D&D groups. Shoot, if you play Pathfinder or Call of Cthulhu or any other TTRPG, consider sharing it with them. I would really appreciate it, and it could help the channel grow. Until next time, when we deconstruct another monster from D&D 5th edition, take care everyone, and I'll see you next time.